with non-Ghanaian. And somehow let me qualify. It seems as if when it's Chinese, it gets a bit more thorny. And I think it's also because we bought into this narrative, this Western versus Eastern narrative. So, of course, I don't know if an American will come and set up a bakery in Ghana. I don't know if the reaction will be the same. All right. So that's another angle to the discussion, because there's a lot of anti-Chinese feeling in West. So like last week, President Biden placed sanctions with the help of Congress on specific technologies made in China. And this had bipartisan support from the Congress. So maybe let me put the question to Ghanaians. Why is it that the factory being Chinese owned makes it more... Okay, let me rephrase the question.
I think that would drag it.
No, I know what I'm saying. Because, Guy, you see, I don't think...
I think the origin of the company should not matter.
It does.
No, it should not.
I think it does.
It should not.
It does.
It should
should
not. Because
not.
even if you look at the Ghana, the GIPC Act, Investment Promotion Center Act, it is clear that we abhor discrimination.
No, the point I'm trying to make, you are not getting me. I'm saying
I
that
understand you.
generally when, for example, when I mentioned it, somebody said, oh, there's a Chinese guy who does, some Chinese lady who does a chop bar in some part of Accra. So why should Chinese be doing, for instance, chop bar? And my point is it Chinese or foreign? What's the point? Is it that making it Chinese, or is it because China is so powerful and they are rising so quickly that people fear that when they get into anything, they can't compete? You see, so my bringing China is not to whip up anti-China sentiment. What I'm trying to say is that the Chinese in particular, because of their numbers and their ambition and their aggression, when they enter any space, usually there's nothing, you can't compete with them. Do you follow my logic? So, for example, when we were doing the issue about retailing, it was Nigerian and Chinese. There were other non-Ghanaians in that space, but most of the rhetoric among the traders was about Nigerians and Chinese. All right? Disruption of retail space. China Mall. Prices are cheap. You go to China Mall, you can get things at wholesale price, even if you're just going to buy one. So you see people on Sunday afternoon in their hundreds who are retailers of basic items going to the China Mall to get it. Their prices, in fact, I did a poll on this program 2020 sometime, asking people where they would rather shop between Palace, Melcom, China Mall. We got over 65% saying they would do China Mall that Christmas because things were cheaper and they had everything. Even though you can say now there are more Melcoms than China Malls. I believe there are more Melcoms now, right? So please don't get me wrong when I say I think the thing is that the Chinese are able to enter any space. So you typically not see an European or an American enter a certain space in Ghana. Okay, they will enter certain kinds of, like Unilever, they will do FMCG production, Dutch, British company, or Procter & Gamble, an American company which is in fast-moving consumer goods, Nestle, Switzerland. Do you follow my logic? But in Ghana, we have a big refinery coming, Chinese, cement factory, Chinese. I mean, even Galamsey, you get me? They are in there, all right. And now you have bread. So I think that context is important because of their growing influence in Africa, Tanzania, Zambia, Liberia. So it's not really even Senegal. Right? So please don't misunderstand me on the point. Now, the other issue is that why is bread so special? Okay. What is it about bread? And again, maybe let's make it better. Will they going into bread necessarily be bad? All right. Let me play that devil's advocate, because some people can say that when they come into a space, they lower the prices, and when they lower the prices, the consumer benefits. In fact, there's a school of thought that in Ghana, our traders are used to arbitrage. So we nyama boy in Ghana. In fact, one of the reasons why the Nigerian retailers do well is that Ghanaians say their things are cheaper and that the Ghanaians sell too high. All right. So in all this discussion about closing shops from foreigners in retail trade, the major argument that people who buy from the foreigners make is that their things are cheaper. Okay. So now that a huge factory in near the motorway 18 extension is producing bread, and the size of that company, I think the bread will be a lot. Should we be concerned either from a so let me divide the issue into three. From the economics and livelihood perspective, in terms of what this means for bakers across the country. All right. Then from the legal perspective, as to whether the law allows a foreign entity to enter a space which traditionally has been dominated by Ghanaians, which is also like a cottage industry. It's like a cottage industry. All right. And then from a sentimental point of view, people actually buy the bread because it's actually being retailed. Okay. So I'll let you do the legal, but I want to deal with Godfred on the
How about just lay the legal foundation so you take that on board?
The law is the last one that will wrap everything up. So, because from an economic perspective, right, Godfred, you can correct me, the feeling is that bread is not just economics, it's even cultural.
Yes.
All right. So bread is like fishing. It's people's livelihoods, lifestyle. So a baker wakes up early. In fact, when I was in school, if you are sleeping in class, the teacher will ask you, is your mother a baker? In fact, there was a girl in my class who was sleeping in class, and they said she was a baker because they wake up around 3 a.m. to do what they have to do. So sometimes they wake up too early, right? And I'm also made to understand that the bakers, they have a special way of retailing the product. So like maybe Sky, if your mother is a baker, she works with maybe 4 or 5 women who do the baking. Some of those women will then be given some of the bread for free to go and sell, and then they bring back the money, and then your mother will now give them their commission.
They give them on credit.
So she's like, you're going to sell it and bring it back. Then maybe Godfred has a shop not too far. Godfred will say, I need 30 loaves. So they'll give Godfred the 30. Maybe they'll give the Godfred 30 loaves at maybe 1 CD instead of 1.5. And then when he sells, he brings back the money. So it's always like a credit business. Okay. So a lot of poor people, retailers benefit from that ecosystem, and the cash flow is basically you sell and you pay. They don't really do advance payment. Okay. Of course, there are modern bakeries like One Ampere and Co. who are doing. There's a guy who used to sell bread when you are driving to Winneba.
A1 bread.
A1 bread. What's the name of One Ampere's company? Bread Boutique.
Yeah.
So they are like the modern. They have a few outlets, but they also source their flour from Irani brothers and co. Right. So it's still part of the economy. So there's one. Now the concern that I'm hearing. This is a large company, so they will produce a lot of bread. Now, we don't know where they'll get their flour from, because the scale of their production, they'll probably have, and we know in China, they are very well integrated. So it's possible, I'm speculating now, that they could bring their flour from China, because they have wheat in China as well. And they could sell the flour to the company at a lower price. So they may not even purchase their flour from the Irani brothers or whoever. Then their distribution method as well. Well-branded vehicles with retailers who will be wearing aprons in traffic light, I suppose. Right. So it's, for me, on the economics of it, it seems as if they will really bring disruption to the bread market. Now, should we say that it's fair game? What's the point? This is a free market. Or should we say that no, we cannot allow a large foreign-owned or foreign interest company to enter an area as sensitive as bread. And therefore, even though legally, the GIPC code, I'm sure Sky will tell me that there's a lacuna that has been exploited there. They haven't violated any law. You can say no from an economics perspective, and from whatever perspective, you can allow it.
Let me start from this. A lot of the things I will say will be based on assumptions. Okay. One, I think we still don't have enough information about what this entity will do. Albeit, people have seen the building and what is happening. So we do have...
They've seen the brand.
We have listener feedback who are telling us that, okay, this is what we have seen. them doing. Okay. So what I will say is we're having a conversation based on a significant concern of what could be. Right? Bread. And the reason why we're having this conversation, if throughout human history, bread has...
Man shall not live by bread alone.
You know,
bread is the basic.
Bread is the
sustainer of life.
People measure their lives with bread. It's one of the last things that you touch.
If you can't get bread, you are finished.
Exactly. You remember the famous Marie Antoinette quote, if the people cannot have bread, give them cake. And what it cost.
Even the
French Revolution.
Even the Arab Spring.
Yes.
The guy
I'm
went
getting to that.
bread, yes.
Even in Sudan, for instance. Bread has led, the absence of bread and the increase in the price of bread has led to significant tensions in the Sudan. Before we got to this crazy point that they are at. One of your favorite quotes is, the best thing since sliced bread. That is one of your favorite things to say.
Bread is correct.
Okay, so if you look at how bread functions in the daily lives of people, it is not something that people play with. Now, the concern here is, what does the presence of an entity that has the potential to upscale production of this particular product, what does it do to small businesses in that same endeavor, particularly when it comes to bread? And I say the concern is legitimate. The concern is legitimate. Why? Because if you look at how economies function, okay, this particular entity might be more efficient than most bakeries will be. And you are the economist and you and Samuels are the business runners here, so help me along. It might be more efficient than most bakeries will see. Their prices might
be much lower.
Might be slightly lower. Might not be much lower. We don't know yet. Might be slightly lower than what is available. Their ability to advertise and market themselves will be stronger.
They will be more ubiquitous.
Exactly. So the presence.
They will deploy food soldiers.
Exactly.
to bring the bread into your face.
And in doing that, the consideration then becomes, what is the impact of that growth of this entity? Because they will also tell you, well, we're employing people. We're employing drivers. We're employing bakers. We are buying margarine. We are doing this. We are paying utilities. We are paying taxes. So significant contributions to the economy. As compared to what? So what do we lose? That is the case you have to make.
Those who are against it.
Yes. So what do we lose?
So they should do cost benefit.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. But is it also just a matter of pure cost benefit? Is this one of those cases where it's simply black and white? It might not be so. Because there are those who also tell you that keeping the production of something like bread, bofrot, wache, in a certain economic line serves a significant use to the economy. And again, I'm not the economic expert, so I'm just trying to speak common sense here.
Keep it for the people.
For the people, yeah. So I guess that is the consideration to be had. On a personal, like I said, I do not know exactly what this company has set out to do, so I cannot say too much. But I will weigh in on the side of, when it comes to things like bread, keep certain entities out. Especially if it is not proven to be local. Because the thing also is this: we have significant bakeries. We have large-scale bakeries in this country. In fact, if you go to Dansoman, there's a massive bakery. Like, they churn out bread. Those who know the Russia Road area, it is 3 times the size of Citi TV.
But when you compare this,
in terms of the size of the factory,
brother, when you look at this one,
I haven't seen it.
Haven't you seen the pictures?
No, I've seen this, but I'm just telling you that I've also seen one in Dansoman. It is 3 times the size of City TV.
In size.
In size, I'm telling you, it is. The workers sleep there. They have a whole block of dormitories, 4-story.
What's the name of the bread?
I've forgotten the name of the bread.
So they serve like the whole of that
Yeah,
area.
they just distribute. They just sell.
Wow.
You understand? So it's not like it
And
is not happening.
and they've not disrupted the market that much.
We don't know.
Wow.
We don't know.
So I guess the main question here is, why should a foreigner be allowed to do bread? Sky, let's deal with the law side, then we'll see. So the economic side is what Godfred has tried to talk about. Right? You are talking about the law side. What does the law say? Can a Chinese or American or Iranian come and produce bread in Ghana?
Okay, so on this matter, let me quickly refer you to the GIPC Act of 2013.
2013.
Yeah, Act 865.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this particular act establishes the Ghana Investment Promotion Center to encourage and promote investments in Ghana, and then also to create an attractive incentive framework and transparent environment for investors. You know that there was a previous legislation which was replaced by this particular act, and the likes of the Honorable Amadou Sorogo, a former member of parliament for the
Medina
area, did a lot of work on it because he was the chairman of the trade committee at the time.
Okay.
And you remember that a lot of storm happened around the provisions to reserve areas for Ghanaians and then also allow for foreigners to enter.
I remember that time Herna was talking about scratch cards.
Exactly.
Should be limited to Ghanaians to sell retail of scratch cards.
That's right. Now, if you go to the activities that are reserved for Ghanaians,
is there a list?
Yeah.
In the law?
Yes, it comes under section 27(1) of the Act.
Okay.
And it outlines the activities that foreign investors cannot get into. So you are talking about the selling of goods or providing services in markets. You're talking about petty trading. You're talking about car hire services with less than 25 vehicles. So, for instance, if you own a taxi business with less than 25 vehicles, you as a foreigner, you cannot proceed. Beauty salons. So if you want to go and do barbering and styling of your hair and all of that. Printing of
recharge scratch cards.
Scratch cards.
These days, that business is dead.
Yes, to a large extent.
Yeah, because of USSD.
Yeah, that's right. So security companies that are into this space are suffering. Then producing of basic stationery.
Exercise books.
Exactly. Retailing of pharmaceutical products and sachet water
Hold on.
production.
Point F is very interesting. The retail, not the making.
Yeah.
The retail of finished pharmaceutical products cannot be done by foreigners.
No, not at
Okay.
all.
That's interesting.
Now, so...
Then the production, supply, and retail of sachet water.
Sachet water, I mentioned that. Then you have the act giving ministerial...
So why didn't they add bread?
We'll come to that.
Because bread and water go together.
We'll come to that. Cool. Now, the act gives ministerial authority under section 27(2), which allows the minister with a consultation with the board to amend the list of activities that are reserved for citizens and citizen-owned enterprises. Now, let's go to the section that deals specifically with the matter we're talking about. Now, retail trading by non-citizens. This is under section 28, subsection 2.
Retail trading.
Yeah, by non-citizens. Now, it specifies conditions for non-citizens to engage in trading. And here it says that investing not less than $1 million in cash or relevant goods and services, while section 28(3) defines trading as purchasing and selling imported goods or services. So if you want to talk about trading, that is one area that you look at. But then also, there are specific provisions that deal with if you want to invest in Ghana as someone who is coming in from outside the jurisdiction. So that would take me to, let me give you the...
Because you do know that the bread will not be retailed by Chinese. They will give it to Ghanaians to retail.
It depends.
So and there's no law that prevents the Ghanaians from retailing a foreign-made good. So the retail may not be the issue here. It's more the making of the bread.
So let me take you to the specific legislative provision on the matter of foreign investors in Ghana. You'll see that on the platform. I put it much earlier.
All right.
So this one says, and I'm going to enterprises eligible for foreign participation and minimum foreign capital.
What's the clause?
That's section 28(1). It says that a person who is not a citizen may participate in an enterprise other than an enterprise specified in section 27 if that person, so is an exception to section 27, which I mentioned earlier, what Ghanaians are, have the reserved right to do, right? So A says, in the case of a joint enterprise, so if you're acting with a Ghanaian, with a partner who is a citizen, invest a foreign capital of not less than 200,000 United States dollars in cash or capital goods relevant to the investment or a combination of both by way of equity participation, and the partner who is a citizen does not have less than 10% equity participation in a joint enterprise.
It's becoming long.
So first of all, you need to meet the capital threshold, which is 200,000 US dollars. And then also the person who is joining you as a Ghanaian must not have less than 10%. Then you also have B, which says where the enterprise is wholly owned by that person. So the question is whether these people is a company that is wholly owned by a Ghanaian. Invest a foreign capital of not less than 500,000 United States dollars in cash or capital goods relevant to the investment or a combination of both by way of equity in capital enterprise. Now, the question is whether there are specific areas that they are prohibited from going. As I mentioned earlier, the areas that are specifically listed by the law say that pharmaceutical companies, they talk about retailing pharmaceutical
So
products.
what about food? Is food mentioned at all?
Food is not mentioned. They
Apart
talk
from
about
water.
sachet water
So
retailing.
there's no mention of food as a restricted area.
Yeah.
So
So
foreigners can produce food.
yeah. So if you look at the provisions of the Act, it will seem that there's a lacuna there. There's a gap in the Act which is being exploited by these guys. And to the extent that they meet the minimum capital threshold, which is say 200,000 US dollars if you're acting with a Ghanaian,
Or 500,000.
500,000 US dollars, as the case may be, or where you are retailing, you meet the threshold of about 1 million US dollars. They are at liberty to do what they are doing.
So there's no law preventing them from doing what they're doing. So no, I get you. I'm just asking Ghanaians whether they are concerned about this at all, and what does this mean for our bread market?
Let me add though that if you look at the section 40, the Act empowers the minister acting together with the board, and also section 27, a specific provision there, to provide for exclusive zone. So the minister can amend the Parent Act to add on to the areas reserved for Ghanaians. So for instance, if we take
without amending the law.
exactly. So if we take the view, for instance, that this bread thing, foreigners should not be there, then we can make a case before the Minister of Trade and insist that no, to the extent that this is a cultural matter, is a matter that touches on the livelihoods of some of the poorest of the poor, who put together little resources to set up bakery with bakery produces bread sold, and people are educated, people get employment as a result. And that intervening with large-scale production will kill these people, will kill their livelihood, will kill their businesses, will frustrate education of their wards. And therefore, the minister should do something about it. That case has got to be made. And
But the people respond and say that from what Godfred said, there are already large-scale bread producers in Ghana. They just happen not to be foreigners. So the only reason why whoever is criticizing this is because they are foreigners.
Yeah, but you see, you and I just spoke about the fact
Or non-Ghanaians.
that, when non-Ghanaians, especially the Chinese, go into a space, because of the huge capacity they have in terms of how well integrated they are. The flour question. The question is whether they will be buying the flour from Ghana. If they have cheaper flour from China, and it is possible to move that flour all the way from China together with the other inputs to Ghana at a cheaper cost, and produce bread that is far cheaper than what is available on the market, even from the commercial producers, then there is a case to be made that, look, this would decimate livelihoods. And for that matter...
So you are saying that they being from China and the economies of scale they have will adversely affect the large majority. It will be a market distorting
most likely
thing. So to that extent, the minister should create a category where foreigners are prevented from.
The bread.
Without
bread
even
thing.
amending the law, he can use that. You say what clause is that?
So section 40, if you go to section 40.
You can use that clause. Do you agree with Sky that the Minister of Trade should use the powers he has in section
Except
whatever?
it will not have retrospective effect.
Oh,
Yeah. Because if you amend the regulations to create this space, it would have to apply going forward. The Constitution abhors.
Jesus.
Yeah, but that's one step. That's one step. So there are other things that we can do as a country to discourage this thing from escalating. The other day, another
It's actually
foreign-
section 42.
42. Okay.
action of toilet rolls.
Foreign company.
Yes, near Wager, and then they expanded into washing powder, and then they expanded into roofing sheets. Then they expanded into the Atala thing. That's
So
the
started
Atala
off-
cells. No, what's that?
Steel.
The iron rods. You know, within that enclave, they do any and everything.
You know why?
Because they have. I mean, I'm not saying it's not is illegal. It's been permitted. Now, if the entry point to that kind of industry is so prohibitive for the average Ghanaian, if like those in the vulnerable economic brackets, then it's understandable. But in a situation where there's a certain group of economically vulnerable people whose daily survival would depend on some enterprise like baking of bread, I think we need to do more to protect that group of people. And it cuts across, it's a long chain. Now, people with superior financial power from other countries, when they are allowed to get into these areas, there's a backlash that we cannot handle as a country. You know, the bread market is a very, very lucrative market. It's a highly lucrative market. You know, the only thing that distorts this market is the cost of wheat. In other words, the cost of flour. Nigeria faced this situation, I think, a decade or so back. And they chose that they should shift gradually to what they call cassava wheat, which was a blend of the wheat and cassava flour, gradually introducing degrees of percentages of cassava
To blend with their
to blend with things. That way, you task the local cassava market to also benefit from the high levels of consumption. So that's why I'm saying that intervention will just be step one. Step two is how do you incentivize the locals to get into it? Because it's not stopping the foreigner just for the sake of stopping and then we getting hungry. It is creating space for local participation.
Sometimes locals not already into this space in a big artisanal way already. Because in every...
Okay, I get that. I ask you this question back. Do they have space to grow in that do they still have space to grow?
They have the space to grow, but capital...
Which
issues
space?
intervene.
Exactly. Which space is now being pillaged by the foreigners with the higher financial might? This is the point I'm making. So how do we protect them, incentivize them, grant them access to market? I mean, how do you have a supermarket come to Ghana and then bring bread from their country? Supermarket is setting up in Ghana. You go there, you see bread made in their country of origin.
Yeah.
Such
Import bread into this
such things we should not allow.
It happens.
Such things we should not allow.
They bring everything, it's not just bread.
You understand? So I'm just saying that it's a more complex situation than we can even admit. But the least we can do is to make interventions that will protect the vulnerable groups. I mean, what does it take to train somebody to bake bread? How long? Maximum 1 month. People should, what I'm saying is that the entry point is that low. The only prohibitive factor is the money. Bread baking, bread is, look, in the UK, the bread industry in the UK annually, it is 9 billion pounds per annum in terms of revenue. 9 billion pounds. Bread alone. Nigeria's bread market was almost $25 billion in the year 2016.
$25 billion.
It's Nigeria, of course.
That's
Numbers.
big.
So
That's still
300
big.
million of economy.
yeah, I mean, that's the value of the industry. You understand? So what I'm saying is that it's the people who come in, they study the details of our markets before they make the choices. They know where to find the money. They know which parts of our businesses have the highest activities. That's why they
Question.
make the choice.
Shouldn't the GIPC have said no to them when they said they were coming in to set up and they knew that they were going to set up a bread factory?
The law abhors discrimination.
Yes, but you just explained to me that the law also makes provision for the minister in consultation with the board to legislate instruments to regulate matters related to about 6 things: technology transfer, list of enterprises reserved for Ghanaian citizens. So that the existence of that list, that 42.2, tells you that we recognize that there are places that we will limit for Ghanaians. So that's not discriminatory because you do it for water.
Yeah,
So I'm saying that thing that you've just read to me tells me that that's not discrimination.
You see, so I agree with you there. If you're speaking about the now, because the law is what the GIPC works with. So if an investor is coming in, has gone to the Registrar General's Department, registers and gets all the permits necessary, submits the same to the GIPC and says that these are the things I'm coming to do. To the extent that the law, as we speak, allows them to do what they will do, the GIPC cannot on its own say that, look, I am going to limit you can't go into bread production. What would have to happen is that the minister, prior to the arrival, ought to have made the necessary, legislative changes through a regulation to Parliament, which regulation would have to take 21 sitting days and then matures and then becomes part of the statute. But to the extent that it has not currently been done, the GIPC chief executive cannot on his own just say that, because you are coming to produce bread and because the people who produce bread are locals and economies will be affected.
But I'm looking at our trade data, and Sky, we are exporting largely raw materials. So it means that our production capacity as a country is so poor. Like if you look at the top things that we export, gold, mostly in raw form, mineral fuels and oil, mostly unprocessed, cocoa beans and products. So cocoa beans is unprocessed cocoa, and then some products.
And then paste.
Yeah.
Cocoa paste
And then,
as well.
yeah, so the point is that about 80% of your major exports are things you don't add any value to. All right. And then you are importing some of the things that you export in processed form. So you are importing petroleum products which have been added value to. So you export raw crude, and then you import, obviously import vehicles and automotive parts. You import foodstuffs of various kinds, vegetable products, chemical products, machinery. But petroleum is the number one thing you import. So it's, for me, I think the other question beyond the protectionism is, why can't we produce competitively? Because how can you, like even textiles, we're talking about printing. Almost everything that value is added to, we are not good at it.
Because globalization has upstaged our efforts. Every serious country is hungry for markets, i.e., where consumption is taking place. So they sit in their countries, look at the dashboard, and see what is being consumed where, or which geographical spaces have the best potential to consume what they can produce. And then they launch the attack. They don't care about your local conditions. All they want is to be able to feed their people. So no wonder all these Asians are rushing to African countries and providing solutions that they think they have the answers to.
So let me take it on there. So on one hand, we are saying protect us like the bakers or the water producers, right? But competition is sometimes what allows productivity increases. Let me be delicate here. So, for example, if you have just one company producing all the water, there will be no value addition. You are seeing that the more companies do water, or reverse osmosis, oxide. So when the industry is competitive internally, they raise their efficiency levels to a point where now they can be competitive and produce for global markets. So on one hand, we are saying, don't allow foreigners to enter some markets because it will affect us. Yet, we are also conceding that we are not able to compete because our level of production is low. The quality of materials we use is low. And I think that's it's sort of like a dilemma, right? Because sometimes it's when you face competition that you will improve your process so you can then compete.
Yeah, Bernard.
Deal with that.
That's just one side of the coin. The other side is that, first of all, identify your need areas, and you can have a deliberate policy after identification that we are going to focus on this one so that as a country we can generate a certain level of competitiveness. First, self-sufficiency, and then secondly, competitiveness outside of our country. Because look at all the countries in the third world zone and see how they have survived. You don't go out pushing your products out at your own expense. So how do you export Gary and be hungry for Gary in your own country? So first of all, self-sufficiency. And then secondly, but if there's lack in your system against the issue of poverty, people will always make a choice of buying what is cheaper, so long as it solves their problems. And that's where the opening for the foreigners will come in. And this opening for foreigners, they are not just passing through, they have come to stay. And more of them are coming. And I'm saying, look, if you drive on the streets of Accra now, today, I don't know about the other regional capitals, you see young men holding a certain brand of detergents by the streets. Many, many years ago, it used to be Omo.
Yeah.
Check whether you see Omo by
Now
the
they are
streets.
locally made.
You can find them.
They are all
I just don't
locally
want to
made.
mention.
So
But
now it's
look
like the
what-
local makers have upped
the
their game.
foreigners have come here.
Oh, the foreigners have come here.
The foreigners have come here instead of sitting in their countries and exporting to Ghana.
They come and
have
make it
come
here and they are making it.
and they are doing the thing, and they have actually disrupted the whole chain. But you can't blame them because the cost of entry into that space is so prohibitive that the locals don't have the pleasure of just entering into it.
Let's read some comments. We are talking, indeed, it's all. I think there's so many angles to this. The issue of protecting Ghanaian production, reserving some areas for Ghanaians alone, being more competitive. Ghana has a $4.5 billion trade deficit, at least when you compare merchandise imports to merchandise exports for 2022. The Ghana 2022 Trade Vulnerability Report, put together by Statistical Service and GRA, contained this information. Our major exports are raw gold, raw crude, raw cocoa. And our major imports are finished or petroleum products for our vehicles and our machines, machinery and electrical equipment, and then vehicle and automotive parts, plastics, vegetable products, and other products. Those are the things we import into Ghana. That is not good enough. And Nathan, if you can read a few comments on this bread business, it will really, really help me.
All right, this one says most, if not all, Chinese enterprises are with their country and established outside of their country, and they are partly owned by the CCCP. Okay, that's what this person is saying. So they have the financial backing and muscle to enter any market to to cause a disruption.
I need to make a comment on that.
intentionally or not.
This is true. Okay, let me qualify it. I don't think that you can say most of them are owned. But what I will say is that when a Chinese entity is doing well in any country, and they will typically get the attention of the government, who will give them a subsidy. So if they notice that Sky is doing bread in Ghana and Sky is doing well, based on certain metrics, they will say, Sky, you've earned for yourself maybe a subsidy of this amount of money so you can do better. So you even though it's your company, the government is part of it. And they don't ask you whether you like it or not. They will tell you that this is what we are doing. So it's a different approach to Ghana, where companies have to, like the pharmaceutical, had to go to government to say, we need you to support us. In China, the government assumes that when you are doing business, you are an extension of the state. So it's not even, they are not going to ask you whether you are doing it because they give you the support to come to Ghana anyway. You see, so I think that point is a very interesting point, and that's how they do a state-led capitalism, right? Which, as against the capitalism we think means that the state must just sit down and claim that the private sector is the engine of growth. That cannot be true. Private sector cannot be any engine without state support. So the Chinese are actually teaching us that instead of government owning the company and mismanaging it, when the government sees you doing well,
support you.
they should rather support you and then have a stake in it.
You see,
It's a different mindset.
looking at this, that I was telling you that I'm not very excited by that oil refinery that has been put up.
Why?
Tema. I explained it to you.
No. What is wrong with that?
No, I'm just telling you. We'll have a conversation about it
let's-
later.
Yeah, we can deal with that because go on, Nathan, go on.
All right. Ghanaians have made cakes all their lives. Check when a foreigner starts Boss Baker cake. He industrializes it and takes over the market. Okay, or starts to boss, I think. This one is from Kwesi from Afia. It says, regarding the bread production, let's ascertain some facts after this setup. Will the price of bread reduce as a result? Isn't that what we want? Are we concerned because the company is from the East rather than being European? Is there more demand for bread in that district to be satisfied? Where is this company buying the flour and other ingredients from? Are they
Hold
cheaper?
on. Let me go back to the first question. So this is a mistake we make in Ghana. Like, it's all about cheap prices. You want a sustainable economy. What you need is stable prices, not low prices. Right? Number two, the fact that prices are low doesn't necessarily inure to the overall economy, because low prices are just one factor you need in economic being vibrant. Okay, so usually what we do is that we pitch the demand for cheaper things as the be all and end all of industrialization policy. That is not correct. Okay, so what we want is not just cheap prices.
Okay.
Yeah, but
We also want jobs to be created. We want people to be paid fairly. We want the business to be integrated into the local economy. We want suppliers to benefit from the company's expansion. We want taxes to be paid. So if you're asking me what we want, if all we want is cheap prices, the government can simply, that's why price controls never work. You understand? If you just tell people that sell cheap because that's what people want, that's not what we want. We don't want an enclave economy where you produce something with everything from outside and nobody benefits. That's why mining has not benefited us for 50 years, because it's been enclavized, and you need to make it integrated into the rest of the economy. Second question. What was the second question you asked?
Okay, the second question was okay.
Oh, that is long. You lost it. Okay,
Yeah.
fine. That one.
Okay, it says, are we concerned because the company is from the East? Rather
No,
than-
we dealt with that. We dealt with that because we've spoken about the record. In fact, there's even Chinese in tilapia.
Yeah.
We've spoken about the track record of the Chinese in certain spaces and the fact that they are state-led. Everybody has the support from their state. There are some industries that obviously are controlled by European and American entities, like the mining companies. Most of them are from those parts of the world. I spoke about FMCG. But when you look at the foray of Chinese into certain spaces, which you would consider our first logical step, like, for example, I don't know how many Ghanaian companies can produce cars from beginning to end. All right? Fine, they do import some of their parts before they assemble. But the point I'm making is that in industrialization, there are stages. All right. Now, the stage, for example, agribusiness and agro-processing is the next logical stage after agric. All right. Now, if you allow the place that you are going to move to be taken over by
Where are
a
you
competitor third world country, so-called, then it means that you have nowhere to step. Do you get me? You may not be able to compete in robotics with Elon Musk in making his cars. But if you want to add value to Gary, that one you should be allowed to do it. So it's not because they are non-European. All right. What's the third question?
Then it's asking whether or not there's demand for bread in that district.
As for bread, yeah, it's a mainstay on almost every.
So the fact that there's demand for, but the people is there a shortage of bread in Ghana?
No, nobody has ever complained about the shortage of bread in this country.
What we talk about is flour and its price. Again, from Samesi's point, if this company had an initiative where they would experiment with locally added flour mixtures, where, for example, the cassava thing comes in, and they say the reason why our flour is cheaper is because we have piloted with CSIR, we are adding cassava flour to our normal flour, we have a flour mill that produces flour cheaper, and our Ghanaian farmers can benefit, then we can consider. My point is that we shouldn't just allow GIPC to just say, do this. We haven't thought through the thing. We haven't linked it to anything just because they can pay the money. Do you get it? We should be more strategic than simply agreeing that come and do it. No. Okay, if I'm Minister of Trade, I'll say, come and do it. I'm going to give you 3 conditions. Get your flour, set up a flour mills here. Talk to CSR and add 30% cassava flour. Employ Ghanaians, put them on SNIT. Do you get it? And then limit your activity to Greater Accra for 2 years.
That's progress.
That's my start.
That's progress.
You don't just get up and say, come. Then it's okay. There's no country you go that they just give you a carte blanche. We are the only people who think that once we get something small from the people, hey, okay, it's okay. We don't think, that's why we are suffering. We don't think about the next generation. We don't think about 20 years from now. How many locals can even learn the way they make bread? I mean, bread technology.
But there's also a provision in the regulations and the law for that matter for technology transfer. So all of these things become a part of the ultimate license that is given or the permit that is given.
Which encourages them to. It's not by force. It encourages them to do that in the process.
No, I mean it's a requirement that you engage.
That's the GIPC. Okay,
in the process.
Is there evidence?
In the process.
Okay? So this is what we should do. They should give us, and GIPC should be able to say to us that in the past 10 years, here are the learnings from the top 20 club 100 companies that have been licensed in terms of technology transfer. So now we are producing our own shoes, we are producing our own soap. That would be a record to look at, because a lot of times when the law says these things, they are perfunctory. There's no enforcement. All right. So I'm saying that you must link it to a broader economic development policy. And to the extent that I can't see one. Okay. So please don't tell me that bread will be cheaper and people will be employed and no source. No. We have to be more. And what disappoints me is that a lot of times our policymakers, it's like they don't go beyond the person has met the criteria. We are not jealous about our market.
At all.
We don't guard our market jealously. Our neighbors, Nigeria, don't do that. And indeed, the other thing about the trade report is that most of our trade is still with Europe and China. We don't even trade. Our largest trade partner in Africa is South Africa, followed by Burkina Faso. Our trade to Nigeria is less than 5%, which is serious. We have so many Nigerians in Ghana, so many Ghanaians in Nigeria. Nigeria too doesn't trade that much with us. They also trade with Europe, China. So there's something obviously wrong with the way even African economies are targeted. We export our gold to Switzerland and we export our gold to South Africa.
See, the reason is that the capacity to refine these things across the entirety of Africa, the things we are exporting, is very, very low.
But you know why? Because the government is not, for example, if the government encourages financial institutions to lend to certain types of institutions involved in value addition, over 10 years, they can be competitive.
That's fair.
The banks will not give them the money. You get me? So, sometimes people disagree with the Minister of Trade, Agric, when he says he will force banks to lend to Agric. But let's try and understand what he's trying to say. He's saying that, look, you cannot have plenty banks in the country. We are trying to de-risk agriculture, and yet you are not lending to the sector. Okay, maybe they can tie the licensing of certain banks to their loan book. That's what BOG and Co should be doing. It's okay, strategically, Ghana wants to develop agric in the next 10 years, and every bank's portfolio in agric must increase from 5% to 15% in 5 years, and you police it. If you want your license, do that. If you don't want, you can go and set up a bank somewhere else. But here we don't do that. Once the guy sets up the bank and a few big men are on the board, people get their cut. Anything can happen. And then the system is suffering, and then we turn around and say things are not working. When people come to set companies here, what targets do you give them? What conditions do you give them? Nothing. You get me? And your people are helpless. They can't produce nothing. We are not competitive in anything. WTO is having a big conference in September. I may be there. Fred, the major argument is our market access.
Yeah.
The Chinese and the Indians will not agree. Yeah. And they say China and India say at WTO that they are developing countries. Yeah. Meanwhile, they are not fighting for all of us.
They are fighting for themselves.
They take on the EU and America and say, you have to allow us to produce generic brands of your pharmaceuticals because we are developing countries. And then they said, no, you are not a developing country because you are producing. And the China said, no, we are developing. We are not even heard at that forum. Market access, domestic support. People are pumping billions into their farms and subsidizing them so they can come and dump here. Anti-dumping rules exist. We are not enforcing them. We go to the conference and we are happy that we were made to make a statement. And our people are losing jobs. Our people are struggling. And people are always fighting for, it's cheaper for a foreigner to sell in Ghana. Life is not just about cheapness. You have to defend what is yours. If it's just a question of what is cheaper, then we won't produce anything. Because I don't see when Ghanaians can start producing anything cheaper than Chinese. There's a Chinese person who runs a chop bar in East Legon. Correct me if I'm wrong. The woman supervises the guy so efficiently that they can deliver your fufu in record time. And the fufu also tastes nice. But does that mean we should let Chinese come and take over fufu business? Do you understand? You cannot say that because somebody is doing it better, it means that that's all it is. Because in their country, it's not meritocracy like that. They favor their own people. You can go and set up a bread making factory in China. Even if you can do it better. Or can you go and set up a radio station? And say, I'm a good journalist, I can talk very well. Let me go and set up. They say, do you get it? So if we limit it to, they can do it better, so let them do it. They won't do anything. Mm-hmm. The market is ours for a reason. This is where God put us. So we must guard it jealously. And our political leaders are failing us. The US Congress, this is the most divided Congress in history. Mm-hmm. They came together last week. They interviewed a Republican who said, hey, when it comes to China, please, we are all the same. Mm-hmm. And they said, we will not allow companies that support China or that make resources available to people who don't have our values to succeed in our country. That's what these are the Republican congressman. It was on BBC, 10 p.m. Business News. And he said, on this matter, even though we and President Biden may not be on the same political side, we are on the same side. It was a joint resolution of the House.
That's the national interest.
But what is our national interest?
That's the issue. Often we are divided over the issue. But it's still within the same
Ghanaian politicians, please.
There's a message that has come in from Archibald Frimpong, who says, good morning, Richard and Bernard and the team. Interesting discussion today. But I think we should also look at it from this side. Again, within the same theme that you just spoke about. The company will pay company taxes to government, unlike the local and informal bread producers. They will employ workers who are Ghanaians and pay them. Also, the company will get prices of bread reduced, economies of scale, unlike our local producers. Consumers will benefit from the reduced prices of bread. In the long run, this passes on to savings and the consumer gets to save a lot of money. Now, the company would ensure food quality and food safety measures are adhered to, unlike our local producers who are often not checked by the FDA. I guess all foreign-owned restaurants should also be closed down, because if we allow them to operate, they are going to be killing our choppers. We should also, as well, ban all foreign companies that operate in Ghana, because they compete with Ghanaian companies in virtually all sectors. We may have to find ways of giving incentives to the local producers. Generally, technology, economies of scale, and efficiency are supposed to make life simple and better. And that's what I believe this company is going to be doing with us.
Thank you for that comment. A few more comments on the matter. 054-998-6996. Godfred will read them as well.
Okay. All right. This one says, I think the question you need to ask is, would China allow an African to open such a business in their country? If the answer is yes, then there's no topic to discuss. Kwame Nkansa from Prague, he said that. Samuel Sak in Dansoman says, okay, he's giving us the name of
give it to me. I want to hear
the bakery in Dansoman.
The Dansoman bakery. What's it called?
Okay, it's Force France.
Force France, and is that big?
Named after the owner, Faustina France.
Is it Ghanaian or?
Yeah, it's Ghanaian. Yeah. But that's good. There's no problem with that.
This one.
Let me say something else. See, the other reason why we are talking about this is that, look, every March your currency falls. You know why your currency falls? Somebody invests cedis in Ghana and has to repatriate dollars back to his owner. Now, this First France person, they are in Ghana. So even if they make 1 million cedis, it's here. If an American or Chinese or French company produces this bread, the owner of the company doesn't need cedis in his country. So it puts pressure on your currency. So it's not just a question of, is the bread cheaper or are we discriminating?
Eventually there'll be repatriation.
It's part of currency management. Because if, in fact, even MTN, they make legitimate profit, but you have to even stagger their
repatriation of currency.
Yes.
Otherwise we are in trouble.
Because if a company of the size of MTN decides that they are paying dividend in March, let's assume they make $2 billion worth of profit, and they are paying 70% of that in dividend. Do you know what that means for your CD?
I think some time ago, just a couple of months ago, there was a massive spat between the Nigerian government as always
Yes.
and Emirates.
As always.
Yes.
And Emirates, because they told them for 2 months or so they would not allow them.
Well,
Yeah, but
it's been going on for a while in
Oh.
Nigeria.
You know my
They would not allow
problem.
them to send money back.
We here, we claim we have the best democratic system in West Africa. But a lot of countries within the sub-region are more decisive when it comes to protecting their own than we are.
We don't.
The
at all.
Parliament of Nigeria, you should, sometimes I listen to them when I have free time.
On channels.
Sky, they don't waste time. Oh. Of course, you can say Nigeria is big, but they are very clear when it comes to many, many things. Here, we will still argue. Even here, if I go to the trade committee, I have not seen that level of bipartisan cooperation on many important things.
Bernard, you see, I
You
was
know,
in
it's a bit
Parliament
sad.
when the law we are talking about was passed. You know, one of the main issues that undermine all the efforts that people seek to make in this space is Ghanaians fronting for foreigners.
Because of poverty.
And because of
Because the pocket, they want the pocket. You see, what I'm saying
Also
is that
lack of patriotism.
like the last message you read,
lack of patriotism.
that when the foreigner comes, the thing will be better and then will be cheaper. I want the person to name which industry specifically that has foreign participation that has resulted into anything cheap in terms of consumption. He should name them.
Good point.
The people are doing toilet roll. A country, we can't do our own toilet roll. And so because of that, toilet roll prices have come down in this country.
Not true.
Comparatively, if you
Compare with which where?
what maybe the likes of Bell Pack are selling.
No, I don't think so.
No, it's not true.
This is not true.
No, it's not true. No, it's not true.
It's not true. It's the only thing that is cheaper. I did a data on chicken for you, where frozen cut chicken, some of which is 10 years old, is cheaper than Ghanaian grown akoko that we cut. And that one, there are many reasons for it. And that's not just because of efficiency. It's also a question of subsidies. It's also a question of capacity,
But you
feed.
can't on any level compare homegrown akoko.
Yeah, but when you look at the price, no, see, so Sky,
It
no,
comes to
Sky,
poverty.
no. The economy will say a 2 kilogram chicken, foreign, 10 cedis, local, 15 cedis. They look at it in weight, so they won't say that. Do you understand? So that's why when we did the average prices, the foreign chicken was much cheaper than the Ghanaian
Yeah,
chicken.
but the value you derive from eating local chicken, you can't get that from.
No, hang on.
I know,
Hang on,
I'm not agreeing with
hang
you.
on.
Yeah.
The foreign chicken, too, they are grades. They are grades. The cheaper one, which are like the, if you like, in our local pan, the baller ones that the people don't use, they send them to Africa. It's not poisonous, but the people there, they don't eat it. See, what all we are saying is that
seems so, yeah.
we should now start looking at strengthening the local economy so that Ghanaians ourselves can control. Many years ago, printing, top of the range printing, everybody was going outside Ghana to do printing. Back press came on the scene and changed the narrative. Then we knew that it could be done to the same, but at the same standards as is done in Europe.
Checkpoint 2 also came in at some point.
Checkpoint went into security printing. Then came type company. And you see, what I'm saying is that if we focus on making it happen for the Ghanaian, providing the resources and the incentives, it inures to a better benefit, which is more sustainable for this country. Of course, they will buy equipment, 1 or 2, from outside. But at the end of the cycle of a year, they are not going to repatriate their profit to any other country. That's all we are saying.
Charlie, I have the Instagram handle of the bread.
The bread,
All sorrows are less with bread. Distribution, Tema, Amasama, Ablekuma, Spinters, Kaswa, Suhum, Hacho, Dansoma,
but
Newtown,
you
Madina,
see,
and Sawam Home.
Let's not.
Distributor price 10 cedis. The phone number is there.
No.
No, the thing is serious.
The
oh.
size of the bread. And
Let,
that would
let's,
seem to
you
be
see,
cheaper
let's,
than-
let's not think that
The
we
thing they
we
be
hate
rough.
the company. I
It-
think
it
it's the
go crack.
policy of opening that space up
for
to
foreign intervention.
foreigners who have better technology, who have better equipment, and more money
It no
than
be
the
easy.
average Ghanaian. Money that we ourselves we cannot determine their source most of the time. You understand? And mind you, these companies that dare to come to Africa, they are not single companies. So they are big companies who have access to raw materials at very cheap prices. So the parent company is sitting somewhere, mapped out the geography, go here, go here, go here. If you want to buy flour, you are only supposed to buy from this source because we have negotiated, just like the Coca-Cola.
Charlie, put
You
it-
have to buy concentrate only from 1, 2, 3, Morocco, Egypt, South Africa. Case closed. You can't buy from any other places. So I'm just saying
It's
that
tied to the whole
if we
strategy.
don't make a deliberate effort to protect the Ghanaian and so that we can sustain this if like the low hanging industries, then we are in a bigger trouble.
They put their word pound.
If we want Chinese to come and bake bread here,
Your daily bread. has
then
started.
who should build the factories to build cars?
Charlie,
They come here to bake bread for
be
us.
serious.
Then we just have to continue carrying firewood.
That's all. We can't do anything.
But you see, the provisions of the
No.
act.
The
we are
provisions
not-
there is there. The letter of the provision
not
is
arguing the law.
correct, but the
I'm
spirit.
actually even trying to fortify your position. That if you look
No, they
at,
say all sorrows are less with bread.
you see, if you look at the
Hashtag our
reserve,
daily bread.
Bernard, if you look at the reserved areas for Ghanaians, it tells you about even the psyche of the lawmaker. That these are the low hanging fruit. These are the
They are in Kaswa, they are in
the
Suhum, they are in Ho,
ordinary
in
areas.
Sawam, everywhere.
Well, somebody tells me that they helped to construct the road joining.
Those are
Yeah.
all.
So how many Ghanaian companies can
engagement,
set up bakeries and start fixing roads? You see, that's the point he is making.
How many? But you see, normally, and Samens will tell you, if you are a company and you want to be in good terms with the local people, the community,
You have to sort
these
them
are
out.
some of the things you do.
Yes.
So it is just tapping into those pores and then using it as a bargaining chip. Because also,
So Sky, let's end the
we
show. My
want
question
a
to you
Chinese
is that
company to come
So-
and join and do business in Ghana.
Cars,
There are
tractors.
No,
do
I
tractors,
want to say something.
plowing machines. These are the things we
want-
don't have what
no
it
bread.
takes to do. Bread and
So-
now
so-
they'll start doing clutch yesu. They'll start doing they'll do all these things.
Zoe,
And
Zoe.
they'll write chiffon. They'll write all those Chinese things. on
they'll
the
call
thing.
this shit all. No, I'm saying that finally. I want you to tell the trade minister to take a closer look at 42 article, section 42,
42-1.
and then see what he can do about this issue.
Yeah, that's right.
That's where we are saying.
That's right. I think we would have to formally.
It's very serious.
Of him that we take a
Yes.
serious view of the situation
Yeah.
and that he should intervene with the regulation
Right.
so that further developments in the nature we are
Yeah.
talking about will not.
Meanwhile, we'll see you on the 26th and 27th of August at AMA Forecourt, where the This is Ghana exhibition is showcasing made in Ghana products. It's happening at AMA. Call 0205 973 973. Probably brought to you by MTN Momo, Nalo Solutions, and Pan African Savings and